over the past few months, we've been having discussions about how people could develop research ideas. Whilst these discussions have been very useful and generated interesting discussions on the forum, there have been a demand about what next, i.e., how do you translate these ideas into winnable grants? This issue could be addressed from a number of perspectives, one of which is the perspective of a grant recipient. We have Dr. Harris Makatsoris, who is a reader in the Department of Mechanical, Aerospace and Civil Engineering. He's got an enviable track record of grants totaling about £8 million, out of which £2 million has gone directly to his group. Welcome to Research Live, Dr. Harris Makatsoris, and a big thanks for accepting our invitation today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So, first I'd like to ask you, using one of your grants as an example, can you walk us through how you make a start with an application?
Right. There is lots of ways to start a grant application, but in most cases, and of course it does depend whom do you apply to for funding. There are various funding bodies, as you know. I mostly apply to the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, and to a lesser extent lately to the various EU programs, although I used to apply quite a bit in the past. So it all starts primarily, although not exclusively as far as EPSRC is concerned, with a call. Now, EPSRC has been, over the last few years, moving towards managed calls. So a large proportion of their budget is allocated to such schemes, where they essentially they pose a problem and they ask the community to apply to solve the problem, in essence. Now, these problems, the way EPSRC in particular works, these problems are driven by the community. So EPSRC has a process, a rather lengthy process, to consult the community and come up with ideas, and then they formulate them in a specific way that they do into a call. Of course, research councils and EPSRC, that I know better how they work than any other research council in this country, and they also have allocate funding through what they call the responsive mode. And responsive mode is where there isn't a particular call or a particular constraint that a call imposes, where you develop the idea, you apply, and then it gets assessed by the peer review process. So it really depends which route you want to apply to. So for managed calls, it is essential that you address all the features and the constraints of the call. A responsive mode is a little bit more tricky because it is sort of open to ideas, but there are some other constraints that you have to be aware of. And one key is to really understand the research council's current funded portfolio, okay? The areas that they consider as priority areas, okay? As well as the other aim and objectives of the research council when it comes to funding decisions. So, as far as the responsive mode is concerned, an applicant has to be very, very familiar with EPSRC or the target research council, what it is that they're looking for to fund. In other words, familiarize themselves or yourselves with the research council's portfolio and their other priorities. For instance, EPSRC now, one of their key priorities is to develop future leaders, right? And that has many dimensions. Another key priority is responding to the national research agenda, okay, national priorities. So that's as far as the responsive mode is concerned. Managed calls, these constraints are a little bit more explicit because they're outlined in a call document. All these priorities I mentioned still apply, and they are mentioned explicitly in the call, as well as the key aim and objectives of the particular call. In other words, the problem they are trying to solve. I mean, if I can give you an example, we have applied recently, very recently in summer, there was a big call out on advanced functional materials. The application process was a 3-stage process. There was a very brief outline, very brief outline, which was essentially a 2-page online form. And in the call document, they set out all the criteria you had to address with a very limited space that you had. In fact, they were counting the number of characters, including spaces. So it was really cutthroat. And the application process was very cutthroat as well. So that they had, at this stage, a very high attrition rate. So once you went past this stage, then they invited full proposals. And the full proposal was assessed by the peer review system. And after that, another stage gate, looking at the rating and the reviewer comments. Proposals were invited for a full interview or not. And after the full interview, then the final decision was made. So that is just an example. And in this particular call, they had, if I remember correctly, 4 key areas that proposals had to address and a number of features. And by features, I mean not just the technical or the research aspects, but rather what the applicants, what the team should also do in the project. For example, networking activities, outreach activities, seminars, engaging with the rest of the community, bringing other experts or complementing expertise that is not available in the consortium, engaging with industry in specific ways, and all sorts of other things that EPSRC was looking for as part of that particular call. Now, as of this morning, we've got 2 new grants, network grants, so that they're not quite research, but they're networking grants. They're not led by Brunel, unfortunately. They're led by other colleagues and friends of ours, but nevertheless, we were successful. That was the outcome of another call that was issued in summer again. Now, how this call started, that's another interesting example, and I'm going somewhere with this, right? About a year ago now, EPSRC invited experts from around the country in the particular area, one particular area they want to develop as a theme in the portfolio, which does not exist at the moment. And that is, okay, just for those who are interested, redistributed manufacturing. So they called a number of experts, including myself. We were locked up in a hotel for a couple of days, and the idea was, there is a challenge, redistributed manufacturing, does it make any sense? Is there anything we can make out of it? And we sat down with the other colleagues from other universities and industry as well, and we tried to work out whether this made sense or not. And what we did in the end, we made a proposal, and in fact they gave us a challenge at the end of the 2-day period, and the challenge was, if you had 500,000, 5 million and 50 million, how would you spend it? We split up in groups and we made proposals. So in my group, one proposal we made to start up with these networks, or maybe a networking activity to explore, or rather try to define precisely what this area could look like if we were to develop it as a research area. And well, I was very positively surprised that this was one of the outcomes, and so they did. So they created this call a few months later, and they invited the community to apply, and that was an open call to everyone, not just the people involved in the initial process. So we did apply, and well, today we found out, actually this morning, that we were successful in 2 proposals that we are involved as an institution. So how do you start a research idea, or how do you come up with ideas and be successful? Engage with the research councils as much as you possibly can, and make sure that you are known, participate to these events. Now these events you get invited by, well, it's by invitation only mainly, but you are invited through an application process. Okay, so keep your eyes open. These are publicized, they are on the Research Council's websites. EPSRC actually, they're very, very good at that. They're very good at organizing networking activities. So that's, to me, that's a starting point, a good starting point. And then you get a chance to influence actually the research agenda, and then that increases your chance of success. So that's one thing. And the other thing, of course, network with other colleagues from within the university and other universities. This is so, it's fundamental, it's essential, because these days nobody is going to fund serious research that involves one investigator. It doesn't happen anymore, okay? So, you know, the concept of the lone researcher these days are long gone. We're talking about big multidisciplinary projects involving more than one institutions. So you have to go out, network, and that's how you develop ideas. Also, funding councils, they have funded from time to time networking activities like the one I just mentioned. So the idea there is, or what these networks have been tasked to do, that there is the money for, is to organize meetings involving pretty much as many people from the community as possible, to exchange ideas and then document these ideas in such a way that the research councils can then take away and develop into research areas, calls and whatever. Okay, so make sure you're aware of those and do go to these meetings. Okay, it is very, very important. That's I mean, frankly speaking, this is the best way to build up your research profile and your research career. Networking with others, and these platforms are the best tool that there is.
Okay.
Okay.